All right, we're going to use what we learned last chapter about finding the least common multiple and kind of use that with our fractions here. So basically, we're going to use least common multiple to find the least common denominator. What the least common denominator is, or LCD, is of two or more fractions is the least common multiple of the denominator of the number on the bottom. So we want to try to find um, the lowest common denominator of some of these examples here. So I'm going to rewrite this. So you can either list them out or kind of you can just know them, that's fine. Common denominator, the first number that both can go into. So start thinking in your head, okay, 2 can't go into 3. Can 2 go into the next multiple of 3? 6. Yes, it can. Okay, so our lowest common multiple or least common multiple is 6. So now what we want to do is we need to turn these both into forms of a 6 denominator. So you kind of want to ask yourself, how do I get from 3 to 6? Well, I need to multiply it by 2. Whatever you do to one part of the fraction, you have to do the other. So since I multiply the bottom by 2, also have to multiply the top. So 1/3 is the same as a 2/6 is an equivalent fraction. Same thing here. How do I go from 2 to 6? Well, multiply by 3. Whatever you do to top, you have to do to the bottom. So those would be common, turning those fractions to have the same denominator. 1/5 and 1/6. Common denominators are going to be 30. Again, you could list those out. You could do a factor tree. Not always going to be the case where the least common multiple is just multiply them together. Just happen to work out this way. So same thing. Ask, how do I get from 5 to 30? Multiply by 6. Whatever you do to the bottom, have to do to the top. Same thing here. 6 times 5 is how I get to 30. Whatever you do to the bottom, have to do to the top. And another one here. I'm going to change this to, well, we'll just leave it. 2/5 and 3/7. Again, just so happened in these examples that the common denominator is just multiplying both of them together. Not always the case. 5 times 7, 7 times 2, whatever you do to the top, have to do to the bottom. Okay, so we can do this. Definitely makes it easier when you have the same denominators to compare fractions. So in this case, to find the common denominator of all of these, what is the common denominator? So again, we have 15, 10, 6, and 5. Let's start with 15. So can any of these go into 15? Only 5. It doesn't do us any good. So let's go to the next multiple, 30. 10 can go into 30, 6 can go into 30, 5 can go into 30. So we're going to do the same thing except with all of them here. So turn these all into denominators of 30. That way it makes it a lot easier to compare. How do I get to 30? 5 times 6, top and bottom. 6 times 5 times 5. 10 times 3, whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom, and times 2. Okay, now we're going to write the original fractions up here, but now I have 18/30, 25/30, 21/30, 8/30. So easy to tell here. So again, these go, let's kind of break these up. So we can remind ourselves. So remember, these are equivalent fractions. So since 4/15 is 8/30, that's lower than all the rest of them. So that's going to be my smallest fraction. Next one is going to be 3/5, because that was 18. That's my next lowest. 7/10. Finally, 5/6. Okay. Finally, we can use approximation to see which fraction is greater. Basically, you can kind of compare it to a fraction. Easiest one to compare it to is to see if how your fraction compares to 1/2. So like, for example, 8/15 is 8 halfway to 15. Well, it's actually over 8/15 is a little bit bigger than 1/2, right? Because it's over halfway. It's over halfway to 15. What about here? 11/24. 11 is not halfway. It's actually less than 1/2. So since this is a little bit more than 1/2, a little bit less than 1/2, this is obviously a bigger fraction. Same thing here. 16 is not quite, right? 16, half of 32 is 16. So it's not quite 1/2. So this would be less than 1/2. 11 is over 1/2. Half of the way. If it's over half the way to 18, which means it's bigger than 1/2. So that's how one way I can tell if that fraction is bigger. Kind of get the idea. If it was double, if I double 23, I'd only get to 48. That means this is not halfway there, less than 1/2. 31, if I doubled that, I'd get to 62. So that's well over 1/2. So that is a bigger fraction. Same thing here. Over 1/2, less than 1/2. Okay, I'm going to make up one more here. So let's say I had 5/16 and I had 4. Doesn't always have to be 1/2. So 5/16, 4/20. I'm sorry. Let's do 5/21. Well, this is not. This is close to a fourth. So it's 4/16 would be a fourth, right? 5/16 then is greater than 1/4. Okay. 5/20 would be a fourth. Okay, but it's not 20th, it's 21st, so that's a little bit less than 1/4. So you can do it with other fractions as well.